Black Panther actor Chadwick Boseman, who was 43 years old. He died on August 28th of colon cancer. Believe it or not, he now holds the title for the most liked tweet in Twitter history. His last tweet, Yo-Yo and Vanessa, became the most liked tweet in the history of Twitter. The record was previously held by former President Obama when Obama tweeted the Nelson Mandela quote, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion." But on August 11th, shortly after presidential candidate Joe Biden chose Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate, Boseman posted a photo of him and the now vice presidential nominee to Twitter and Instagram. He captioned the post on Twitter, "Yes," accompanied by the hashtag #WhenWeAllVote. And that picture and that post is now the #1 liked post in all of Twitter. And that is quite a tribute to the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, who, by the way, really had to have been an extraordinarily strong man, both physically and in his mind, to have stage 2, 3, and 4 cancer. Colon cancer is extraordinarily painful. To keep it to himself and to act in, not in roles where he was sitting behind in a chair, like I am for 2 hours, to be physically active in a role. And, listen, I've never been to a movie set, but from what I read, they go 15, 16, 17 hours a day, and
he did his own stunts.
And he did his own stunts, and to be in pain, and then to make no excuse. Zero. Nobody knew. It shook everybody. They said, "What? Black Panther had cancer? I didn't know." Nobody knew. What a strong man, both mind and body. Everybody respected him beforehand, but, now knowing what he went through and still was able to do his job without one complaint to any human being outside of his very close family members and caretakers is amazing.
Even people who were doing movies with him had no idea, which I think it was one of the last movie he did was Five Bloods that was on Netflix that Spike Lee directed. And he was working with Black actors that were pretty legendary. They've been working for so long, and he was right next to them, and they interviewed one of them, one of the main actors, and they asked, "What did you take away from this?" And he broke down because his wife had asked, like, how was it working with Chadwick? And at the time, this was right before he died, the movie he just did. He said, at the time, I thought he was a little precious.
He
That's
said,
what he called him.
I thought he said he used the word prima donna because he was getting massages and stuff.
Yeah, but
Right.
he said he called him precious.
Uh-huh.
He said, I felt like he was precious because I felt like he let Black Panther get to him, because right when he got off set, his Asian masseuse was massaging his back to the trailer. His makeup artist was actually rubbing his feet. His girlfriend was always by his side holding his hand. And he was like, wow, this is, I guess, you have one of the biggest movies that came out, Black Panther, but it's like, okay. He broke down because, that teaches us not to judge people. You never know what anyone is going through. And I think we could all learn from that.
I wonder, what do you think, Nesquik? I wonder if part of the reason why he obviously wanted to be a private person, but I wonder if he thought in the back of his mind maybe he wouldn't get these roles if people thought that he was sick with cancer, because movies have to be done on time, and you can't, put somebody into a major movie and then have them walk off set in, 1 or 2 weeks into filming because they got sick and have to go to a hospital.
Yeah, I think he's the perfect example of resilience. There's so many times that we don't have any idea. Like Jonathan said, you can never assume that or even judge anyone for anything that they're going through, because you just don't know what they're dealing with. And I don't know if necessarily it would have kept, I feel like his talent overpowers his sickness, which he proved it to be. I look at this whole story and I just think resilience, because the time, the hours on set, how many takes you have to, moving forward, there's just no excuse for any actor that wants to make it. It's like, you don't use, what you're going through as an excuse. You're not a victim. Chadwick proved like, hey, you could really push through and do what you're passionate about, regardless of your circumstances.
It's amazing because how people perceive you and who you are. Here is the most perfect example where Yo-Yo is talking about this actor who perceived Chadwick to be something that was not manly or strong, and quite frankly, it was the opposite. He was extraordinarily strong. So how somebody is perceived and who they are.
I definitely don't think that he kept it from the world because of roles. If anything, Hollywood they're vultures. So if anything, if they knew that he was going to die, they're going to want to get him for one of the last roles. Just like everybody went to go see Joker because what's his name had died. When you know that's their last movie, you're going to do everything to go and watch that. So I definitely think, because he was still visiting kids in cancer centers. He legit was doing what Mother Teresa and Gandhi type of acts. It just speaks volumes on the type of man he was. I think he was just trying to leave us with gems and, for us to learn from his situation, because even the last months of him being alive, we could tell that he was sick. Either he was sick or preparing for a role, because everybody was like, he lost so much weight and he could have came out then.
Our condolences to his entire family. It's a big loss in the entertainment world. And he brought so much joy to so many people and inspired so many people. People saw him as the Black Panther and Wakanda actually existed. That's how convincing he was. When you watch that movie, you were like, I think this place exists. Now, some people actually were going to vote for the guy and don't even respect him. Okay? Just because Trump gets a vote doesn't mean he's respected by the person who's voting for him. But multiple sources, I'm sure you guys saw this over the weekend, told The Atlantic, which is a very well-known magazine, that Donald Trump has repeatedly disparaged the intelligence of military members and asked that wounded veterans be kept out of military parades. When Trump canceled a visit to the Marine American Cemetery near Paris in 2018, he blamed rain for the last-minute decision, saying that the helicopter couldn't fly. It turns out that wasn't true because Marines can fly a helicopter in the rain. He rejected the visit because he feared his hair would become disheveled in the rain and because he did not believe it was important to honor the American war dead. In a conversation with senior staff members on the morning of the scheduled visit, Trump said, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." In a separate conversation on the same trip, Trump referred to the more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Wood as suckers for getting killed. Now, Belleau Woods is a consequential battle in American history, and the ground on which it was fought is venerated by the Marine Corps. America and its allies stopped the German advance towards Paris there in the spring of 1918. If it wasn't for that war and that battle, Paris may be speaking German instead of French right now. But Trump asked aides, who were the good guys in this war? And said that he didn't understand why the United States would intervene on the side of the Allies. Now, according to three sources with direct knowledge of these views, Donald Trump referred to former President George Bush, he was the first George, not the second, also as a loser because he was shot down by the Japanese as a Navy pilot in World War II. On Memorial Day in 2017, Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery with John Kelly, then Secretary of Homeland Security, and who would be named the White House Chief of Staff. Kelly's son Robert was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps who was killed in 2010 in Afghanistan. He died at the age of 29. Trump was meant to join John Kelly in paying respects at his son's grave, but instead he turned to Kelly and said, I don't get it. What was in it for them? Trump angrily has denied these allegations while attacking our top military leaders that he appointed, accusing them of waging wars to boost the profits of the defense manufacturing companies in which the military buys military equipment from. Now, in 2015, said of the late Senator John McCain, who spent more than 5 years as a prisoner of the North Vietnamese. And by the way, I was in Vietnam last year. I saw the prison where John McCain stayed in. It was not a pleasant place to be, even as a visitor, let alone imagining being a prisoner of war there for 5 years. And Donald Trump said of John McCain, "I like people who aren't captured. He's not a war hero." Now, Trump, lastly, also attacked Gold Star Muslim parents Humayun Khan, an army captain who was killed in Iraq in 2004. Trump said his mother was not allowed to speak at the Democratic National Convention in 2016. In truth, she didn't speak because it was too emotional for her to discuss the death of her son. This is the man in charge of our military. He is the leader of our military. He can't honor our dead. I don't know how more disrespectful he could be as a president and as a leader.
It's literally like he's always trying to top himself. Like,
and this
he's
is
just trying to top.
And by the way, this is a man who went to a chiropractor who got a fake letter from a chiropractor in the 1960s that said he had bunions or flat feet. I forgot what was in that letter. It was either bunions, bone spurs in his feet. Bone spurs in his feet, and as a result couldn't go to Vietnam. So the suckers were those people who did get recruited. Donald Trump didn't. He suckered everybody.
Yeah, he sure did.
He continues to sucker everybody.
He suckered everybody. And everything's transactional for him. Everything is transactional for him. We heard from Jacob Blake. He's the black man who was shot by police in Wisconsin last month. He spoke from his hospital bed about the pain of recovery and his hope for the future in a video posted by Twitter by his attorney on Saturday. Blake said, "I just want to say to all the young cats out there, and even the older ones, there's a lot more to life. There's a lot more life to live out there. Your life, and not only your life, your legs, something that you need to move around and move forward in life, can be taken away from you like this." You know what's interesting about this with Jacob Blake? He's one of the first people in a long time, a black man, to get shot unnecessarily by the police in the back to live and talk about it. We don't usually hear from the young black men who are shot, because it's usually the young black men are shot and killed. It's very sad that he lost the use of his legs. And it's also extraordinarily sad that you hear on Fox News that, he was wanted for this, he was wanted. It doesn't matter what he was wanted for.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. Nobody deserved to get shot in the back, whether he was wanted or not wanted. Nobody deserved to get shot in the back. Nobody deserved to be paralyzed. Period.
Right.
Doesn't really matter. I don't care what he was wanted for.
In front of his kids.
I don't care what he was wanted for.
Exactly. You beat me to it, Yo-Yo, because there's that part that, especially now, like, I don't know, with kids going back to school, like, can you imagine the trauma? Like,
you don't
what? In front of his children?
You don't ever get that back. Okay? That is being in what's called the zone of danger. If you're a child and you're in that area, that zone, that you watch your father being shot and you potentially were in danger yourself, that is something that you never, ever get over. It's called being in the zone of danger, and it psychologically ruins you for an extraordinarily long time, if not for life. Now, he has been talking positively, which is good to hear. He said, "Please, I'm telling you, change your lives out there. We can stick together, make some money, make everything easier for our people out here, man, because there's so much time that's been wasted." And in Rochester, 7 police officers involved in the March arrest of Daniel Prude. He was a black man who was pinned to the ground and later died, having been suspended, the city's mayor announced on Thursday. The 7 police officers were suspended, excuse me. The suspensions came a day after attorneys for Prude's family released police body cam video showing officers covering the man's head with a spit sock and holding him on the ground in a prone position before he stopped breathing. The police claim that he was spitting at them and claimed he had COVID. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. The police chief has also resigned. His name is LaRon Singletary. He was a 20-year veteran. He was 38 years old. He was a black police chief, and he resigned today as well. The video provided by attorneys show officers handcuffing Prude, who was naked in the middle of a snowy, wet street, and placing a cover over his head. Now, the backstory is that he was brought to a psychiatric facility. He was released, and the brother called the police that they weren't able to control him. The police found him naked on the street, and I believe when, at least this is the police account, he started spitting at them, and that's when they put the hood over his head. That's when they pinned him to the ground. That's when he got asphyxiated.
That's wild to me that this happened in March. And we just now starting to protest about it because we don't never hear about this type of stuff. And this happened here in New York.
It's wild. That's upstate New York, all the way up on Rochester's, all the way up on the border. It's actually closer to Michigan and Detroit than it is to New York City, even though it is in New York State.
Still in New York.
Yeah.
Right.
I find it unbelievably shocking that after all of our protests, after everything that has been said in the news about this, that you have police still killing black men, shooting them in the back, putting hoods over their faces, over their heads.
That man is so unarmed. He is naked, butt naked.
I am not a police officer, and I don't know the ins and outs of police, but I can't believe that the only way in the entire world to stop a man from spitting at you is to put a hood over this man's head that he can't breathe and pin him to the ground because he couldn't breathe through his mouth, and apparently the officer's knee was on his stomach and he couldn't breathe through his abdomen.
I don't know if it's true, but I heard that someone said that one of the officers had put his hand over his face as well with the hood over.
Yeah,
so he definitely couldn't breathe.
Yeah, that I don't know. Meanwhile, the House is preparing to vote on the legalization of marijuana this month. The House of Representatives. Did you hear this, Jonathan and Nesquik?
No.
I don't know if this excites you or not. The bipartisan bill, it does. The bipartisan bill, I'm glad you're honest, at least Yo-Yo and Vanessa. The bipartisan bill's lead sponsor.
2020.
Yes, the bipartisan bill's lead sponsor in the Senate is Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris. She is the lead sponsor of the bill in the Senate, and it should most likely pass the House. I doubt it will pass the Senate. Now, if it does ever pass, and it may take a year or 2 years or 3 years to keep getting voted on until it passes, but if it does ever pass, what it would do is it would take marijuana off of the list that says that cannabis is a controlled substance. So it would become off of the list of substances that are listed under the Controlled Substance Act. For immigration purposes, why is that important? Because it is the fact that cannabis is listed under the Controlled Substance Act that prohibits people who were found guilty of possession of marijuana from getting a green card, possibly getting deported, and certainly from entering the United States of America. What a difference it would make in many people's lives. Now, years ago, if you look back at history, and history is the best guide to what would happen in the future, gay marriage. What happened with gay marriage was that states started recognizing gay marriage, although the federal government didn't. So although states were recognizing gay marriage and they were having gay marriages, you weren't able to get a green card through a gay marriage because the federal government wasn't recognizing it. And then what happened was that enough states started recognizing gay marriage that the federal government had no choice but to recognize it. And here we're seeing the same thing. There are some states that are legalizing marijuana, other states that are legalizing it for medical usage. And eventually, as more and more states legalize marijuana, the federal government's going to have no choice but to legalize it. Because you can't have a situation where a majority of states legalize marijuana and the federal government doesn't recognize it.
Well, honestly, that was the main reason why I said I was excited. I don't even smoke. And
Camera.
But you know plenty. But you know plenty of people who
anyone
do.
who does. Yeah, I know a lot. I mean, but one in particular, a good friend of mine who is an immigrant and who is here on a green card, has to smoke because of, some kind of like, it's something wrong with her back. She doesn't like to take the medication, so the smoking actually like soothes the pain and whatnot. And like she can't even do that because she's afraid that, she might like get deported. And she's not doing it for fun. She's literally doing it because she's in so much pain. Yeah, it sucks. So hopefully it does work. It does go through.
Meanwhile, let's talk about coronavirus quickly, because that seems to be on everybody's mind. According to Johns Hopkins University, there's now more than 27.5 million coronavirus cases worldwide. In the United States, more than 6.3 million people have been diagnosed with coronavirus. Coronavirus, believe it or not, has killed more law enforcement officers this year than any other cause combined. At least 101 police officers have died from coronavirus, while 82 have died by other means. And celebrities are not immune to coronavirus, Yo-Yo and Vanessa. Batman has paused filming because Robert Pattinson, who is Batman now, he tested positive for coronavirus. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, our pal, and his entire family revealed on Instagram on Wednesday that they also had coronavirus. Johnson said, "I can tell you that this has been one of the most challenging and difficult things we've ever had to endure as a family, and for me too personally as well. And I've gone through some doozies in the past." Meanwhile, Donald Trump, last thing on Donald Trump, Yo-Yo and Vanessa, he's threatening to cut funding to major U.S. cities run by Democrats in blue states, states that are not going to vote for Trump anyway, on their grounds that their leaders are allowing anarchy, violence, and destruction. And it mentions specifically he's going to cut federal funding to New York City, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and Washington, D.C., all cities that would never vote for Donald Trump anyway. Noticeably absent from the memo are defunding Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Kenosha, Wisconsin. Why? Because Minnesota and Wisconsin are battleground states that can go either to Biden or Trump. Now, New York governor, the only thing I find interesting about all of this is the retort by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. He said that the coronavirus outbreak in New York State lays at Trump's feet. He had a press conference today. He told reporters that Trump caused coronavirus in New York and encouraged others to hold him accountable for it. He blamed Trump's incompetence as a leader for the pandemic. The reason why I find this interesting is Cuomo seems to be the only Democrat who can punch back to Trump as hard as Trump punches everybody else. Cuomo said Donald Trump caused coronavirus in New York. It is a fact. It's a fact that he admitted, the CDC admitted it, and Fauci admitted it. He was furious for Trump's belated response to the virus, and the president did not take enough precautions to stop it from reaching the shores of the United States. He condemned the president's rhetoric around the pandemic going all the way back to 2019. He went on to say the virus killed many more Americans than anything that Donald Trump or any of the Republicans were worried about on the southern border by immigrants. This nation loses more people per day to coronavirus than any nation on the globe. And you know who did that? Donald Trump's incompetence. And now they won't provide federal funding to help repair the damage from the ambush they created. The fact is, Jonathan and Vanessa, he happens to be right. And he's calling the coronavirus the Chinese virus. But the coronavirus did not come to the United States from China. People in China went to Europe. And you want to know how they know this? Because they followed the DNA. There's different DNA strands of the coronavirus. So coronavirus did not come from China to the United States. It went from China to Europe, and Europeans came to New York because that's where most of the flights come through, from Europe to JFK and Newark. If you're in Europe and you want to come to the United States on vacation, you generally will go through JFK and Newark. And in the month of March and late February, before Trump put a ban on Europeans, and by the way, that ban should be lifted because Europe has their coronavirus under control now, but for political purposes, Trump won't do it. But he allowed Europeans to come in, and that's what caused the spike in coronavirus in New York, and then the New Yorkers spread it to the rest of the United States of America. So in fact, what Cuomo says is Trump shouldn't be calling it the Chinese virus or the China virus. He should be calling it the European virus, because it was the Europeans who brought it over to the United States of America. Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.